Hi, I'm C.S. Woolley. I'm a children's author and an author of adult fiction, and I've put together this series of videos to help you write better. The videos are no longer than 10 to 15 minutes each. The series is following a format of a head video that will look at an element of story writing and then go into more detail in the subsequent videos, just because there's a lot to take in 10 minutes. So they're all packed with helpful hints, no matter how old you are. So whether you are 7 and really just getting into story writing, or you're 70 and you've been writing story for years, I really hope that there's something that you'll be able to take away from these to help improve your work. What you're going to need before we start is a pen or pencil and a piece of paper or a notebook. That's it. That's all you're going to need, and 10 to 15 minutes just to watch through the video. The first video we're going to start with is looking at characters. To write a good story, you need good characters. With characters, it can sometimes be really hard to start writing them. It's not always easy to know who the characters in your books are going to be straight off. You may have an idea for a story, but the characters are a little bit more elusive. So we're going to start by looking at how to write a main character, as every book has at least one main character. So the main character, in fact any character within a story, can be defined a little bit by the type of story that you're writing. If you're setting a story in space, then you're more likely to have characters that are aliens and robots than you are for one that's set on planet Earth. If you're writing a book that's in a fantasy world, you're more likely to have characters that are dragons and unicorns and trolls and things like that than you are, again, if it's set in the real world. What doesn't change about the characters is the different elements we use in order to make them up. Every story needs a main character, at least one. There's some books that have an ensemble or multiple main characters where you have a group of people. So examples of stories with one main character are Harry Potter, the Harry Potter books, the Percy Jackson books, The Call of the Wild, where you have Buck the dog's the main character, The Hobbit, where Bilbo Baggins is the main character, the Wind on Fire books, the Skullduggery Pleasant books. They tend to all focus on one character at a time, even though there's other characters that help them a lot and are quite important. If you think about books that are ensemble books, you have things like The Famous Five and The Secret Seven by Enid Blyton, where it doesn't necessarily focus on any one of them, it kind of looks at all of them. Just as a thing with me throwing my hair around all the time, this is me in an effort not to touch my face at the moment. So if you think about your favourite stories, you'll also you'll be able to actually identify who, when you're reading your favourite stories, whether it's a single main character with lots of supporting characters, or it's a group of main characters that are supporting the story. But even if it's going to be one or many, you've got to start somewhere with writing a character. So we're going to focus on writing one main character today, just to make it a lot easier. So whenever you're creating a new character, there's a few questions that you need to ask yourselves in order to kind of discover who the character is, what they are, what they do. So I'm going to read out the list of questions that I use or used. You'll see why I say used in a minute, to help kind of start writing more believable characters. This is not a comprehensive list. You can add to it at any time, things that you think might help, but for the most part, this is a really good starting point to help you. So, question number 1, is your character human? If they're not human, you may have an idea of what kind of creature they are, but it's a really great starting point to define whether your character is human or not. Question number 2, does your character have parents? Are they an orphan? Did they have parents and don't anymore? Have they never had parents? If they're a robot, they've got creators rather than parents. How old is your character? Age is a really good thing to kind of define at this point, just because it gives you an idea of what they're going to be able to do. If they're 14, they're unlikely to be an investment banker. If they're 365 years old, they're unlikely to be human. So age can have a really big bearing on the character. Are they male or female? Knowing straight off whether they were born male or female, or not at all. You know, androids, it's very hard to be male or female. They could have been assigned a gender, but it's something to think about as well. Next one, do they have a job? If they're 14, they could have a job delivering papers or helping their parents at whatever their parents do. Helping on a farm, helping at a newsagent's, helping organize files in the parents' office to earn a little bit of pocket money. Are they like, the Spy Kids, where they're actually trained to be spies from a really young age? Next question, do they have a pet? Pets are something to really consider. Is, like in the famous 5, the pet dog is actually one of the 5. Do they have a best friend? At the moment, that might seem like a really silly question, as it's actually nothing to really do with who the character is, but if they have a best friend, that's another character to create. It also tells you whether they make friends easily or not. Do they have lots of best friends? Do they have one best friend who they've had forever and they've not really been able to make friends since? Where do they live is another question to consider. Where the character lives also helps you to start thinking about where the story is going to be set. Do they have any brothers or sisters? Brothers or sisters have a really big impact on us as people, so they will also have a really big impact on characters. Do they have a favorite color? It's little details that start to really make the characters become real. What clothes do they wear? What are they going to wear the whole time? What do they like to wear? Do they wear clothes at all? Are they good or evil? You could be writing a story where the main character is actually the bad guy, and that the good guy's in a role reversal, the bad guy to your main character. What is their hair like? Hair, as you can see from this video, has a real bearing on how people behave. Do they have long hair that gets in their face all the time, like mine? Do they have really short hair that's easy to manage? Is it thick? Is it thin? How does it move in the wind? There's lots and lots and lots of little details that come down to things just as simple as hair. What color are their eyes? Do they have eyes? Do they have any interesting features? Interesting features are things that could be unique to them. It could be anything such as a 3D printed arm. And why do they have a 3D printed arm? Well, they lost their arm in a corn threshing accident. They were born with a really short arm and they had to have it replaced. Do they have a big nose? Do they have a big chin? Do they have a third eye? These are kind of things to think about when you're creating your characters. They start also to kind of form a backstory. Do they have a big nose because their dad does? Do they have a scar on their right cheek from when they got into a fight with a monkey? Moving on, sorry, I'm getting distracted by my hair. How tall are they? Height's a really good thing to also include. If you think about stories like The Borrowers, they were really, really small, and that was a really important thing for defining their characters. So things like that. And now, when you've considered all of those things, it's going to actually start getting you thinking about other things to do with those characters and other things that you can invest in them and use to make them much more three-dimensional and much more real. And when you've done all of that, finally, what is your character's name? Notice we've left naming the character to the end. Partly this is because it can be really hard to name characters when you're still trying to think about who they are and what they're like. And when you get to the end of that process, suddenly the name can just be there. Other times it may take longer and it may be a little harder. But one thing you can do is, if you're really stuck for names, is look for lists of whatever you're writing in names. So for example, with my Viking books, I've tried to name all of the Viking characters with Viking names. So I use something called norsenames.d, and it's really great. It has Old Norse, Danish, Finnish, Norwegian, Swedish names, both old and new. So I could actually choose proper names for them without really compromising the story. And for me, that was really important. But there's other generators out there that can help you with naming characters if you're really stuck. So this list of questions, as I said, it's not comprehensive, but it's a really great way to start thinking about your characters. In the videos that follow this one, I'm actually going to be breaking down each of those questions to help those of you that are struggling with it to really get to grips with it and come up with your own ideas. But as soon as you get used to writing using this kind of list, it becomes second nature to you, and you start adding in more and more details without having to refer to the list to see if there's anything you've forgotten. It's also really important that whilst you're kind of getting to grips with this process is to keep this list of questions as a checklist to go through. I'll be putting them up as a slide at the end of the video so that you can write them down if you want to. Equally, you can just bookmark the video and come back to it if you need to refer to the list. Like I say, you can add anything to the list that you want that you think is going to help you write better characters. But answer all of these questions, add in a few more that you want to, but keep these characters handy, because in the next header video, we're going to use them to keep writing your story. So they're just kind of a starting point. If you feel really advanced with this and you want to play around and create a few other characters using this, go for it. Have fun with it. This is meant to really help you enjoy writing. It's not meant to make it more of a chore. So let your imagination run wild and just enjoy writing. Check out below this video for details on the books that I write if you're interested in reading them. I've also put up a few videos of me reading from my books. If you find it hard to read, you can just listen to me reading instead. But I will point out that though I do have digital and paperback books, I don't currently have any audiobooks. So if you see any audiobooks out there that claim that I've commissioned them or they're about my books, they are not legitimate in any way, shape or form, so please don't buy them. Otherwise, have a great day, stay safe.